Hi, Preston Sandlin here with Home Inspection Carolina. And today I hope that's focusing right. I can't quite tell. It's like doing something it's never done before. But anyway, this is Preston Sandlin with Home Inspection Carolina. Let me scoot up just a little bit. Today I want to talk to you about something a little different. Usually I talk to you about home inspections and stuff like that. But today, life skill or life thing. We all want to be happy, right? Work, play, whatever. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. 5 steps to be happy. And it's from something that I kind of discovered probably about 20 years ago, Stoicism. Stoicism is an ancient Greek philosophy that's actually very relevant, very practical. It was started by Zeno, probably about 300 years BC, 300 years before birth of Christ. And philosophy was really big then. It's a very practical philosophy, and the 4 big people that you hear about it, if you're interested, Zeno, Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. And I'm big fans of all of those. But basically I'm going to give you 5 Stoic principles that will help you be happy. Number 1 is control, dichotomy of control. And what that means is, in Stoicism, in life, and it's true, you can divide everything into two categories. Things you cannot control and things you can control. And it's always important to know which category they fall in, because the things you can't control, it's a waste of time to worry about them. I know that we spend a lot of times worrying about things we can't control, but it's a waste of time. Spend all our time and energy on the things that we can control, and we'll be a much more effective person. Now, with that dichotomy of control, you might say like a tennis match or something like that. Now, win or lose, do I have control of that? Ultimately, you do not have control. Anything could happen. Even if you're a better player, you could sprain your ankle, you could not feel good that day, whatever. You do not have control of the outcome. Now, what is in your control is your preparation. So you can certainly do things that increase your odds of a certain outcome, but ultimately the outcome is out of your control. You can certainly increase your odds. So that kind of falls in the 3rd category of things. You have influence, but not control. And again, you just can focus on the things you can control, but that's it. So dichotomy of control. Just worry about things you can control and don't worry about the things you can't control. Number 2 is amor fati. I wrote them down just to make sure. I know them, but I want to wrote them down. This basically is taking an obstacle or a problem and turn it into a positive. In other words, have you ever met somebody that's a cancer survivor, or they were in a horrific accident and they may have something happened to, but the crazy thing is, a lot of those people will tell you later, I hated it, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because of this, I did this, or because of this, I learned, it taught me how to focus, or something like that. Now, I am not I'm not advocating go out there and get in a wreck, or have to purposely have something terrible happen to you. But what I am saying is, when something happens, or instead of cursing it or woe is me, you lean into it. Like, okay, well, I'm going to overcome that, and I'm not going to let that define me, or I'm not going to be a victim of whatever that is. I'm going to overcome that, and that can be my thing. I mean, like I know somebody who is really good therapist for eating disorders. Well, guess what? She had an eating disorder, so she really understands what, I don't want to say just girls, it is more girls than boys, but what goes on in the mind. She took that disorder and made it her life's work, and she's like really good at it because she understands that mindset. That's an example of amor fati. You took something that could be a negative or something bad, but you leaned into it and you said, the obstacle is the way. That's a book by what is the guy's name? Ryan. So he's a big fan of Stoicism. I can't think of his name right now. The obstacle is the way, the ego is the enemy. Ryan, I can't think of his name. All right, so we talked about memento mori. That is, remember that you will die. And, you know, I know it's morbid, but knowing that you will die, you know, it's funny, man. I mean, no, it's not funny. That's the wrong word, but it's a long story. I had to spend a little time in a cemetery while I was waiting on my daughter, who wanted to go over into this quarry that was back behind the cemetery, and I had to wait there to make sure if the police came, I could explain. She wanted to take some pictures. So I'm in a cemetery for like 45 minutes, and I'm just reading tombstones. I know, right? I'm weird and morbid, but no, it was a really good thing, you know, because I'm actually reading these tombstones, and I'm always doing the math in my head, you know, how old they were and all that stuff. And, you know, you come to realize, and not to mention my father was a mortician, you're going to die. We are all going to die. And it always puts things in perspective. You know, is what I'm worried about right now really worth it in the end? You know, the clock is ticking. Make the most of your time. And this kind of goes along with another thing. I might should have made this separate, but I'm combining with this. Negative visualization. Stoics, I know that sounds crazy to negative visualizations, but think about this. Have you ever had somebody close to you die, or somebody you knew, and you went to the funeral and it was like a wake-up call? Like all of a sudden, like you started realizing what was important and what wasn't. And Stoics like to keep that perspective all the time. So what they do is they do something called negative visualizations, where they spend about 5 or 10 minutes a day remembering that they're going to die. Also that, you know, thinking something bad, their business burns down, their house burns down, you know, their spouse or one of their kids dies or something like that, and they just imagine it in their head. Now I know that sounds horrible, but then they come back and they realize, okay, that hasn't happened, but it could happen, and I need to make the most of every day and not waste it worrying about trivial stuff. Does that make sense? You don't take things for granted when you think in that way. So memento mori. We talked about control, memento mori, and amor fati. You know, the obstacle is the way. The fourth thing is practice discomfort. Stoics believed in, you know, even if you've, you know, accomplished a certain amount in your life, you know, take the road less traveled, so to speak. You know, take the stairs instead of the elevator. Challenge yourself. You know, even though you can afford a really nice hotel, go camping, go rough it. Even though you can afford really nice clothes or something like that, you know what? Wear some not so nice clothes, and you know, and volunteer in a soup kitchen. Do some day labor. Do something like that, and put yourself. You know, go do, no matter what you do in life, go do some volunteer work where you're using your hands, and embrace the discomfort. And what that does is it keeps you grounded. And should discomfort ever come to you, financial ruin, something like that, you're I don't know how to explain this, but you're able to handle it more because you're used to it and you're grounded. And not to mention, it'll probably make you a lot more likable person too. And number 5, view things from 10,000 feet. Imagine, you know, I know we're caught up in our little problem. I didn't mean to say little problem. But whatever problem you're thinking about right now, I guarantee if you're watching this, you've got a problem right now that's been bothering you. And it may be a big problem to you. But if you looked at that from 10,000 feet, if you looked at that from space, or you looked at it from a year from now, I mean, we're each so small within the universe. I mean, to give you perspective that, you know, my problem is on a world stage, on a universal stage, 100 years from now, I mean, I'll be lucky if anybody remembers me, much less whatever this problem is. So, it's, you know, if you're having a problem, just remember the big picture from 10,000 feet, from a year, from 100 years. It's more than likely it's probably not going to be a big deal. So don't beat yourself up on something that's really kind of small. So let's go over 5 different things. Control. Remember, what you can control, what you can't control. Only focus on what you can't control. Control is number 1. Number 2, amor fati. no matter what happens. And every day, Marcus Aurelius started every day and say, today people are going to be rude to me. Stuff's going to happen that I didn't plan for, but I know it's coming and I'm prepared for it and I will be ready. I know Ryan, he said, when he gets up to do a presentation, and some people may think this is crazy, but he thinks of everything that could go wrong. The amps could not work, this could not, the batteries may go dead in this. And he doesn't focus on it, but he quickly says, okay, if that happens, this is what I'm going to do. If that happens, this is what I'm going to do. So what he's done is thought out every possible scenario, so he's ready. You know what I mean? He's not caught off guard. And if it does happen, great. I got a plan for that. Control, amor fata, memento mori. Remember, you will die. And do some negative visualization, then bring yourself back. And remember, that bad stuff hasn't happened yet, but it could happen. So do not take people or times for granted. Practice discomfort so that you, again, won't take things for granted. And view things from 10,000 feet or from a year from now or from 10 years from now. If you do all these things, I promise you, you'll be a happier person. Tim Ferriss called Stoicism a great operating system for humans. I like that. It really is. So I try to be a practicing Stoic. We all have problems and people this or that, and I just try to say, from 10,000 feet, does this really matter? Somebody posted something on Facebook the other day, says, if somebody came up, like the light turned green and they beat their horn, immediately, didn't even give you a chance, what would you do? And, all these people were saying, I'd give them the bird, and I'd probably put it in park, and I'm just like, I used to be like that, but, being a Stoic, I would just go. I wouldn't even react. I mean, it's not the, an example would be is if somebody wrote a terrible email about you, like just saying you're the worst person ever, blah, 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 but you never saw it. Would it bother you? You didn't know about it, right? Now somebody writes that terrible email and shows it to you. Now you're mad, you're upset, you want to write them one back, blah, blah, blah. And now think about this. In both instances, they wrote it. What's the difference? It's because now you've attached your ego. The thing you control is your feelings, and you're angry now because you saw it. So it's not really the email that made you mad. It was your attachment of ego and your control. You actually control that. The ultimate is to see that email and just be, Stoics give you tactics like, wow, they must not really know me, or they would have wrote it a lot worse or something. It's just, remember, you control your reaction. When you act in a knee-jerk reaction, you're not practicing Stoicism. You're actually a slave to that event. So remember, what you can control and what you can't control. You can always control your actions, your reactions, and your perceptions. This has been Preston Sandlin with Home Inspection Carolina. I know this wasn't a home inspection video, but I hope it was helpful. Thank you for watching.